Okay, hi again. Third part of our hangout, and I am glad to say that in the second clip, I was able to share with you the screen correctly so that you may be following the slides with me. So now that I have mastered this small detail, let me go back to the presentation so that we will keep talking about the corporate level strategy. So allow me just one moment. Now, starting with the screen sharing and going back to our presentation. So I hope that you will find interesting the video on Subway. And after looking at the franchising model, let me move quickly to the licensing model. What is the main idea here? If you're the owner of a valuable brand, you can actually give the right of exploitation to another firm in a business sector so that you will create more brand awareness and therefore you will become a more positioned name in the corporate industry. I am putting some examples that are actually very common. The toy industry actually has many licensing schemes from movies, from brand names in tourism, for example, the ones of Disney. And as you can see, Lego, that has been a very particular turnaround in business cases, actually built its new strategy by taking licenses of many important themes like movies like the one seen Back to the Future, Star Wars, and even other kinds of names like Barbie or sports. And they have even created their own stories based on this kind of model. Toy Story, a very important brand name, actually used in license mode, also by Play School, Mattel, just to name some of the leading brands in toy industry that are actually exploiting this highly popular product. Now, why do we license a brand? The main idea is to combine the power of an industry with a brand in order to capture more customers in the long term. If you remember when you were children, those of you that like American football, we can see merchandising of NFL in the most diverse forms that we may imagine. Caps, towels, clothing, just to name a few. And for every single piece of an article that has the brand name of your favorite team, name it the Cowboys, name it the Steelers, these firms are actually diversifying their revenue sources in a very attractive way. As you can see to the right, in the World Cup of soccer in 2010, Coca-Cola, which is a long-standing sponsor of this kind of events, actually had its own edition of the soccer ball, the Habulani, with the brand of Coca-Cola imprinted in it. So in this way, Coca-Cola is reminding the customers that they are present in this kind of important events. Now, uh, after exploring franchising and licensing, I would like to talk not about the exchange of knowledge within firms, but the organic growth that can occur with your own resources. And in order to do that, I just want to remind you briefly about a marketing tool that you may actually have seen several semesters ago. Igor Antsov, one important business author, created this matrix just to explain what kind of strategy can be used according to the actual amount of resources and the line of the strategy that the firm may have regarding its market and regarding its line of products. Its development may tell you a lot about how they are going to move. And Mr. Antsov was talking about four main strategies, combining the variables of product portfolio and the market coverage. And we're going to talk briefly about the four of them. Market penetration is one of the most exhaustive strategies and the most demanding ones when we are talking about trying to get a larger share of your current position. And we're going to talk about market development and product development, where you are looking beyond your normal business boundaries in order to explore new opportunities and diversification as well. So just to get moving, market penetration, as I am talking about a few moments ago, you want to fight in your existing arena for a larger share. What is the main catch or problem here is that the competitors are not going to stand still. They are going to compete with you. And in many industries all around the world, one of the largest drivers of consuming decisions is pricing. Therefore, if you want to penetrate a market, the primary tool that you will use is to lower prices. And naturally speaking, this action creates an effect. The interesting fact here is that you will commoditize your market, and the customers get usually accustomed to get this kind of lower prices. And the moment the market stabilizes, the demand also stagnates. Why? Because there are no more promotions. Now, if you have a large amount of resources, perhaps you may not compete on pricing. Perhaps you may try to compete on capacity. You may try to deploy more resources, perhaps in the form of more cafeterias, if we are talking about Starbucks, perhaps in more flights, if we are talking about an airline, or in more production facilities, if we are talking about a manufacturer of cars, because this clustering may actually give you an advantage to exploit the coverage of the market and perhaps give not a very deep discount, because you are actually having more availability of products to the market than your competitors. Now, there are also more interesting ways to make market penetration. Bundling, to use complements, I mean a basic product with another one to make a package, is also another way to make an interesting market penetration with a less risky way regarding the use of your resources. And if you actually give more perks or more non-monetary discounts, you can actually make this strategy a viable one. Now, when we are talking about market penetration, we are actually talking about specialized companies. We are talking about firms that can rely on a single product or on a single family of products, so that they may be very focused on the execution of their strategies. Think, for example, on KFC. What is the core product there? Chicken, in many ways. And if you can recall, one of the less successful products of this kind of firm is actually hamburgers. No matter if they are of chicken or if they are made of chicken or not. The main idea here is that the customer does not identify easily KFC as a company making hamburgers. Think of Goodyear, for example. What is the specialty of this firm? Tires. And I'm not speaking about tires just for cars. I'm speaking about tires for everything that may use it, from cars to planes, from planes to heavy machinery. For the ladies, Natura, a Brazilian company regarding cosmetics. They have outgrown its competitors in Latin America with the same business model of Avon. I mean, a network of individual distributors that go door by door, appealing to households and offering flexible payment schemes. So just like Natura, Zebra Technologies, one specialized firm, in this case about printing devices and printing inks and cartridges mostly. So as you can see, if you want to compete effectively with a penetration strategy, it would be highly useful to be a specialized competitor. Now, how do you grow when we are talking about this kind of concentrated growth? First of all, you want to exploit the volume size. What do I mean by this? Think on children formula. Leche Nan, Leche Nido, just to name a few products. What happens? When you are programming your monthly expenditures, and if you have a baby, you may rely on going to Costco or Sam's Club and buy a larger bottle of this kind of products. Why? Because the volume will give you better pricing regarding individual units. But think for a moment on the mom or dad that actually goes on a trip with the baby, and at the very airport, they realize that they have forgotten to bring the children's formula. Naturally speaking, they can go to the pharmacy at the airport, but they will not find the large bottle that they can actually find in Costco or in Sam's Club. So what happens? They would buy a very small version of it. Naturally speaking, they will pay more in relative terms, but they are satisfying their need by the urgency of use. So if you can appeal to have different volumes and different channels of distribution according to a very more fine segmentation by the need or opportunity of use, you can actually keep enhancing this concentrated growth scheme. Now, another way to work, exploit versions of it. For we gentlemen, Gillette is a very specialized company in everything for the men. And we can see deodorants, we can see razor devices, and shaving devices, sorry. And the main idea here is we can create products for every possible need. We have deodorants for the man that actually makes more sports, and we may have deodorants and products for the man that has a more corporate day of activities. We have a shaving device for the man that actually likes to make use of it daily, or we may have a more hard use device for the man that actually goes on field trips and has less water available, for example, for cleaning. So as you're seeing, we are talking not only about demographics, we are not talking about psychographic segmentation. We are talking to a very fine-tuned aspect of finding what actually the customer wants and does to make sure that you can create different versions even within the same product. And another way to grow within this kind of scheme is to attract competition consumers. How? Create what is known as try and like schemes. For example, I'll give you sticking with Gillette, I'll give you the main device for shaving, and I'll give you as a present 2 cartridges. After the 2 cartridges, you'll have to buy, because the main shaving machine can just be used with the blades of Gillette. So if you do that, you can actually create an advantage and loyalty versus the other firm. Now, moving forward, think of a strategy called market development. What is this, to put it simply? Take your basic product, in this case Marriott, a renowned hotel brand, 5 stars, and start adding or subtracting some features of your business model to appeal to different business segments. What happens if we are talking about luxury? We may add several features to create JW Marriott. We are still connected to the main brand, but we are making a premium service available to a segment that will be willing to pay more for it. Take from the base product some of the features, make a smaller hotel close to the airport with basic services, and you have what? Courtyard Marriott. This kind of service still has the reliability of Marriott, but actually can allow you to capture price-sensitive customers. In another example, if you're ever traveling long haul to Europe, for example, you will find that some of the airlines are actually not just offering a 3-class service, first, business, and economy class. Some of the airlines are moving to offer a 4th class of service called premium economy or premium coach or economy plus. And what is this? The customers that are willing to pay a little bit more for a service that actually requires it, because it is not easy to travel 10, 13 hours just sitting there. these customers will have a little bit more of perks without coming all the way to the premium service. So the airlines actually discover this more fine segmentation in order to get an incremental revenue opportunity. This kind of service is actually very common in Asia. Now, regarding still product and market development, there are markets within your core business that you need to realize. Take, for example, here in Mexico and in some Walmart stores in the United States, you can actually find complementary services. For example, a vision center for all of those needing glasses. And why is Walmart offering this vision center even with some promotions and some schemes to attract people? Because they know that the huge volume of customers visiting the store every single day can offer a potential to address them in this particular need. Think on El Palacio de Hierro here in Mexico. Why does El Palacio de Hierro offers Viajes Palacio? Because they are connected to a top tier segment with high revenue, and that they usually need traveling to luxury destinations. So what happens? They offer a more integral experience, even adding up this kind of product. Think for a moment when you are making the line in the bank, perhaps not so commonly in these days with all the banca por internet available from many providers. But what happens when you go to a bank office? You can actually see a screen projecting insurance services, projecting Afore services, and you may also have executives visiting the queue line just to offer you some compliments like a credit card. So in this way, they make less of a hassle, your time waiting in the line, and they can also take advantage to make business with you. Now, moving to product development cases. What is product development? Think on your core product and then add some features and add a different line of product within your core business that you can actually adapt it quickly, easily, and that offers you a good chance of combining both to make a better positioning. One very clear example, why did McDonald's enter to offer McCafe? Here in Mexico, a growing trend. More people is consuming coffee. And the leader is not Starbucks. The leader is actually OXXO. So what happens? McDonald's has all the facilities adapted with fast food that has a declining or stabilizing trend due to the concerns of health for people. So what do they see? The opportunity to offer a standalone business unit, in this case McCafe, with some pastries, with some specialty beverages, and perhaps drive the customers that may not be coming more for the fast food to this particular service. And some of the new customers that may come to McCafe may find suitable opportunity to adopt the fast food in any possible occasion. What happened with Walmart here in Mexico? Again, just like the example of the Vision Center. Walmart is a retail store, not a bank, but they saw the opportunity to offer financing with their own sources instead of leaving the financing and the interest rate charge to all the other banking providers. So they created Banco Walmart here. Unfortunately for them, due to performance, they have divested the unit so far to Inbursa, and we will talk about divestiture strategies in some more minutes. But so far, that's an interesting development of their business model in order to have a lock-in of customers every single day. Another way to lock in customers with product development, take for example on the maintenance of your printing devices in the offices. Usually, the device is not the business. The spare parts, the cartridges is the business, and the maintenance that can be done periodically, perhaps every semester, perhaps per year, that's the long-term business that the company may seek to have with you. Now, another interesting example, as you may have seen through all the semester, you have known a little bit more about Avianca, my firm. Avianca is also a nice example of product development. Why? Because the airline realized that we have several interesting opportunities in complementary business. One, here in Latin America, cargo is a very important need. Why? Because there are several raw materials flowing from our countries to North America, to Europe, just to name a few. So what happens? Actually, in Latin America, one company is the leading firm, even having logistics centers outside of Latin America, and I mean LATAM Airlines in Miami. Avianca realizes this opportunity, and we commit ourselves some years ago to invest in our own cargo division so that we do not rely just on the bellies of our planes. And so far, we have a successful business unit that can leverage actually our revenue needs for all Avianca holdings. In tourism, we saw the opportunity in Colombia, our home market, to offer touristic services, hotel, transportation, jointly with our air service. So we created Avianca Tours in alliance with some leading agencies. The model has turned to be so successful that we are in position to export it to other countries. And by far, we have made inroads in Central America, and we are aiming to other nations in the continent. Now, are there more ways to make a product development strategy? Actually, they are. When we are talking about a global portfolio of brands, even within a single company, you can make sure that each brand creates its own segment so that all of them may be competing in a certain way, but they are actually opening up the spectrum of customers that you can actually have. The best example I can give to you is Grupo Modelo, which actually made Corona Extra the leading Mexican beer in the world, but actually some other of the products in the portfolio of this particular company have become leading brands in foreign markets for top tier customers. For example, Negra Modelo is regarded like a luxury brand in beers. And another way to grow is something that we can see in a company called Pollo Campero from Central America. This particular brand created a very interesting scheme by looking for the Guatemalan diaspora in many countries in the world. And they have created a very single, reliable model of fast food in this case, even created a competitive barrier against KFC in Central America. And they have been covering the markets that has the most viable and connected community to them before even going to North America and nowadays in Asia. So when you are facing the total saturation of your local market, you can explore in other boundaries. Now, last but not least, the remaining two concepts that I want to share with you about corporate level strategies. The first one is innovation. And this is perhaps not just a strategy, but a whole mindset for corporations. What is the main idea when we're talking about strategy? Remember that a strategy answers what is our winning aspiration, how do we intend to win, and where do we intend to win? So in order to answer these questions, you may commit your company to keep investing in a very progressive way in research and development in order to keep new products flowing into your portfolio as the other ones meet their natural decline in the product life cycle. What is the main idea here? Create an advantage through knowledge, create an advantage through patents by protecting your main products so that you may have a time advantage over new competitors. And in this way, you can create a sustainable operation. Some of the firms that I'm mentioning there, 3M is a very spectacular example that they even mention in their corporate framework that they can allow the staff of the firm to devote some minutes, some 20 or 15% of their daily time just to develop new ideas. Just multiply this by all the staff and try to imagine how much hundreds of new ideas may come to the company. Even if just a dozen of them become viable, they are creating a sustainable advantage. Pharmaceutical industry is another way to keep competing by innovation, or just think for a moment in information and technology with Intel, a highly specialized company just committing to keep improving microprocessors in order to be the sole competitor with the most of advantage. Now, the other interesting strategy here is diversification. What is the idea here? A main firm may try to buy or may try to acquire an interest in other firms just to further on merge and integrate with their business portfolio, or perhaps just to take advantage of a solid performance for a longer term. When we're talking about companies within the same business sector or a related business sector, we are talking about a concentric or related diversification. The example of this would be Coca-Cola acquiring Santa Clara, that makes milk, so that they can have a richer portfolio of products. The unrelated or non-concentric diversification would be the acquiring of Grupo Lala as the largest shareholder of Aeroméxico. Naturally speaking, Aeroméxico is not going to mobilize Grupo Lala development of facilities about milk. But Grupo Lala is a highly regarded company with a very good management team, and they see the opportunity to get revenue from a growing sector in Mexico, tourism, particularly with the leading airline of the country. And just to close up this growth strategies and go to the final part, which talks about crisis strategies, I want you just to know some Latin American success cases. Cinépolis would be a very viable example of concentrated growth. Why? Because they have created a very solid business model that has even been exported to India. And let us remember that India by itself has its own solid film industry that even competes with the United States. Cinépolis is a leading brand in Latin America, and they keep innovating in their service promise to customers in order to remain competitive in this kind of industry, particularly facing the threat of Netflix and the online platforms. Think, for example, of Bimbo, a company growing through mergers and acquisitions all around the world. Some of the most recent mergers coming from Canada, coming from Europe, and just within a core business of baking, of bread. Grupo Electra, I have mentioned before, banking and retailing in low-cost fashion or to low-income populations, all the way from Mexico through Peru, just to name some countries. And one of my largest competitors in airlines, just as we have grown in Avianca through the merger with TACA to cover all of the continent. Grupo LAN from Chile has also become a continental company after the successful merger with TAM of Brazil to become LATAM. So I would like to stop for a moment in order to introduce the concept of crisis environments and to end up with the most challenging conditions when you are facing a possible business failure. And we will talk in just a few minutes about what are those crisis strategies, how do the companies operate them, and what could they expect in order to keep business viability in the best possible way. So please stay tuned, and I'll be back with you in some minutes. Thank you very much.